Hi, everyone. Thank you for being part of this interview, this webinar. We don't want to make it a standard webinar where everyone just talks, and there's no engagement from the audience. So throughout the interview, we will be having a few polls related to some questions that I ask Shin. So yes, again, thank you for joining us on our talk on humanizing leadership, how we balance humility, fairness, and vulnerability as a leader. And we have Shin Juay today, who is part of our panel. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here today, Annabelle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so to introduce myself, I'm Shin. I'm currently the VP for Product and Marketing at Storms.
Yeah.
And
Hi. Yes. So yeah, yes, nice to meet you. I think it's great that, Shin's here today representing Oasis. So let's just introduce Oasis for a bit. In terms of, who we are the sister site of KrAsia. Oasis aims to be, a platform for human-centered stories of Asia's current and future leaders of tomorrow. So since our inception, we have had about 200 plus key opinion leaders such as Shin, and 100 plus, including contributors and partners as well. So, really excited to have Shin on board. This is our first webinar of this series. So yeah, I think we can, share a bit more about the next few events that are coming on board later on. So just to introduce Shin and, who this lovely lady of the hour is. Shin is the head of product and marketing at Storms, a gaming startup invested in by Singtel, AIS, SK Telecom, and EDB New Ventures, where she heads the marketing function and oversees Storm's strategic vision and growth. She was previously at Paktor Dating Group, Asia's leading dating platform and app, as VP of marketing, then became COO, and eventually CEO of the company. So a lot of C's there. She has spent over 10 years working in communications, digital marketing, and project management. So yes, very excited to have Shin on board. Shin, sorry, I cut you off just now. Would you like to share a couple words?
No, it's fine. No worries. Yeah, I thought I was going to introduce myself, but you have done such a splendid job. So I'm good. No, thank you to everyone, who dialed in and you're going to spend your next 1 hour with me. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yes, and it's going to be a very fun hour. I can definitely, assure you guys of that. So yes, throughout the event, please input any Q&A in the box below, and we can get to it at the end of the session. But also there'll be polls that will come up and that will pop up based on the questions that, we asked Shin. Yeah, so I guess we can just jump right into it. Shin, so right off the bat, I want to know more about yourself. As we read from that amazing, bio, you've done a lot of stuff, but I also want to know what happens behind the scenes, and, what are 3 values that you hold most true to yourself?
Okay. The first thing that comes to my mind, the top 3 values for me is really to be genuine, to have tenacity, as well as to practice fairness. And these are the 3 values that I practice at both on a personal level and also at work. So maybe for genuine, right? Maybe to expand a little bit on that. So I feel that being authentic is the best way to build relationships, even with my girlfriends at work, with my colleagues, my subordinates, or my bosses. It may at work, right? It may mean having difficult conversations with my bosses and peers. But when I do that, two-way trust and credibility are established when I'm upfront and honest with them, even if it means voicing my disagreement on decisions made or pushing for change. My current and ex-bosses could possibly attest to this, that I'm not the easiest person to work with, but I feel that, if something is not right in my opinion, I will feel very strongly about trying to correct that and not afraid to share with them my real opinion. And also on that, right, I also have the belief that I do not know everything at work. Regardless of me at Paktor or now at Storms, I really fall back on my team. My team members are made up of a lot of subject matter experts, from ranging across from the media to digital marketing to game advisors. They know everything and they know so much more than me, right? So I acknowledge that I do not know everything, and I'm genuine because I will tell them that I really don't know sometimes, and I'll ask them for help and ask them to teach me and show me how. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also pride myself on having transparency by keeping my teammates always being timely informed on what's happening, getting them involved in decisions that impact them. I think that's very, very important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and as for tenacity, it means having the perseverance and the grit to figure things out and not walking away. There isn't any organizations without issues, and because if that's the case, then the organization isn't growing. And very
Yeah.
often, I find myself being exposed to organization issues the higher up the corporate ladder I climb. Okay, the issues could range from staff management to processes breaking down, navigating legal complexities, and upper stakeholder management. These are events that a typical staff is protected from. So just to give an example, when Paktor grew from a team size of 10 to 50, and later from 50 to 200, processes keep breaking.
Yeah,
It's
man.
very tiring to keep up with growth, but
For
whenever I push
sure.
through and experience good outcome, it's very rewarding to me, and that's how I keep myself motivated at work as well. And of course,
Yeah.
perseverance and tenacity is not about having blind faith. You need to truly believe in this journey you're embarking on. Okay, and speaking of this, I have plenty of respect for my ex-colleagues at Paktor. They are the few who really have tenacity, and I respect them every day at work. There's this incident that was very impactful to me. So in 2018, right, I was the COO at Paktor, and Paktor's parent company M17 Entertainment had filed for IPO on the New York Stock Exchange.
Mm-hmm.
The core management team flew into New York. We attended the bell ringing ceremony, but for several reasons, we ended up not trading and withdrawing from the IPO.
Oh man.
It didn't help that the industry started to speculate that we were running out of money, we wouldn't survive. There were a lot of eager headhunters who were approaching my colleagues, asking them to join other startups. So
Oh my
you
gosh.
have a mix of that, and also I also had staff, who have ESOPs, right? They wanted to know what happened to their shares. They were very disappointed, and I was actually very worried. I was mentally prepared that I will lose half of my entire company. People will start quitting because of the failed
Mm.
IPO, right? But of course, we did what we had to. We over communicated a lot. We did all we can to explain to our colleagues. But what really mattered was the in-person. After I had a one, I flew down to different countries where Paktor had presence in. I had a lot of one-on-one with our staff on ground. And then I realized that they did have their uncertainties about the future of the business, but
Yeah.
because of the tenacity of the senior managers and the entire management team, everybody stayed on. Okay, nobody left.
Wow.
And the staff, right, they see for themselves, right, if the leader of the organization was still staying on and continue to plan ahead for the business, they have the much needed assurance that the company had the necessary funds to survive, and we could still execute upon the growth plan as planned. So, because of the conviction and the tenacity of our senior leaders, right, the staff stayed. And not only did we push through, we managed to turn things around. We witnessed the best user metrics and the highest revenue in Paktor's history the next year. And then up till today, it's such a significant event, in my memory. And my conclusion is,
Yeah.
crises actually test leadership,
It
right?
really
People look up to
does.
their leaders, and if the leaders themselves have the tenacity to pull through, people will follow, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and you say that with such a big smile now, but I can imagine at that point in time, going through that, having people look to you when, let's say, there was a failed IPO, you
Yeah.
having to explain to different stakeholders. How did you go through that? How did that make you feel?
It was not easy because we ourselves, we also have our self-doubt, right? But we
Yeah.
try to put that aside and really be very objective and do what's needed for the organization. Yeah, so we did a lot of one-to-one. We reached out, and then it was also a divide and conquer strategy. There's no playbook out there in the market to show you, to advise you, right? What happens when IPO fail, and how do you explain to your staff, right? I think
Yeah, that is it.
our founders back then, did a lot, right? They did a lot of explanation, trying to calm things down. But just now I mentioned about this divide and conquer technique, right? The senior managers who had different departments in the company reporting to them, they had more intimate conversations with their team because they're very close to their team, right? So then we were
Yeah.
very open. We had a lot of ask me anything sessions where
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
their team members could directly ask them uncomfortable questions that they were not willing to ask directly to the CEO or to the more senior stakeholders in the company. I think that helped a lot. Yeah.
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 And
So I think,
on that point, yeah,
yeah, I wanted to just say like middle management in the company, they are the true heroes of the company because they really
for
connect the top
sure.
to the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the time we have the CEO, COO, whatever, but then the middle management are those kind of evangelists on the ground, I would
Yeah.
say, who
Correct.
are who are
Correct.
kind of, making sure that everything's, functioning.
Yeah.
And a question I have also is the idea of tenacity, right? How do you also know when to give up?
How do you also know when you give up?
When to give up?
To be honest, I've never given up before.
Wow.
Really,
Okay.
in a relationship, in friendship, at work, I always try. I don't remember any incident where I give up. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
really.
then let's say from you moving from different jobs to another job, you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't see it as like a giving up. It's just more like a moving to
Yeah,
a new place.
for exposure, for other reasons. It's not because of giving up. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I think that's amazing. I think no, it's a tough thing knowing when to pull the plug on something, but also how we perceive the idea of tenacity also. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
maybe
yeah.
yeah, and maybe on my last point, I talk about fairness, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel that fairness is a value that starts from the top. So, the senior leaders need to hold their managers accountable for practicing fairness at work.
Mm,
It will not work if only one manager in the entire team practice fairness. If there's no fairness starting from the top and for the entire leadership team to practice it, the corporate culture actually erodes very quickly. And again,
yeah.
the higher up the leadership chain I moved, I experienced a larger circle of influence where plenty of decisions need to be made about the people I lead.
Yeah.
So this is where I feel that fairness is so important to me. Consistency is actually very important to demonstrate fairness and to get respect at work. I practice this consistently by treating every staff as an individual, by offering fair work resources and access to them. For instance, um, within a team itself, right, it's made up of very different, unique individuals. Every staff have their own unique personality and working style. As
Yeah.
their leader, what I deem as offering them a work opportunity, what I deem as offering one person a work opportunity may not be the same or similarly perceived by another person, right? And
Mm,
also, back then I remember at Paktor, we were mapping rewards to performance appraisals. There were longer yardsticks to determine the performance of senior staff. Expectations were set much higher than a junior staff before they qualify for a raise or promotion. And one interesting
mm.
thing to note is fair doesn't mean equal.
Fair doesn't mean equal. Okay, tell
Yeah,
me more.
yeah. So I always ask myself, how do I magnify the strengths of individuals within a group instead of trying to control and expect equal outcomes from each of them?
Mm,
Yeah. So at home, the same
okay.
theory applies to my three children.
Yeah.
I have a pair of twin boys. So they are of the similar age, but they are in different stages of cognitive and physical development. So I try to engage
Oh.
with them in different ways to match their learning abilities and maximize outcome. What worked for twin one may not work for twin two. Yeah.
Wow, that's some high level parenting skills. I mean, it's interesting how that transferred over to your home life as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. So that's why I say these are the three values that I practice personally and at work as well.
Yeah, and I mean, on the flip side of it is, for all the leaders that you've seen throughout your career, what's a big turnoff that you've seen? And then I think, Joanna, you can put up a poll there where we ask what's a skill and value that every leader should embody. But yeah, over to you, Shin.
Okay, well, I generally do not appreciate leaders who lack self-awareness because I feel
Mm,
that leaders like that, they don't recognize how they are seen by others and what impact their behavior has on the team. There tend to be a lack of empathy and understanding of what motivates people at work. For example, they
mm,
can be very reactive when things go wrong, taking a knee-jerk reaction of scolding and shaming without putting more thoughts into finding out what happened and why. Or even worse, right, throw people under the bus so they can dissociate themselves from the mistake
yeah,
made.
man.
For leaders like that, they will never build a real relationship with their subordinates. They are never in a good
Mm,
position to make requests of anyone because they would have to come from a place of authority to force compliance, like
yeah.
do or die, cause I say so. My words are the last words.
Oh my
Having
gosh.
having no
Yeah.
self-awareness, right, make it hard to establish credibility and trust in the workplace. I personally find it very stifling to work with such leaders, because these leaders themselves, and worse, the entire organization under their leadership stops growing. Good people will not
Really?
hesitate. Good people will not hesitate to leave with leaders like that, right? And when
Yeah.
people keep leaving, then these companies will be thrown into this vicious cycle of people leaving, high staff turnover. No, nothing gets done. Yeah, they're just on the spot there, stuck.
But
Yeah.
then, do you think that it's also, what if the package is just so good that you're just willing to stay? Let's say it's a great name, it's a great package. Even if you have a bad boss, do you think people would still leave, would still go?
I guess it really depends on the motivation of each individual, right? It
Yeah,
depends.
that's
Are you
true.
the only person, bringing food back for the whole family? Then maybe you want to
Mm,
put out a little bit more. Or if you have other great options out there, then why should you? Even no matter how attractive this package is. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But for myself, relating to my earlier point, if I experience leaders like that, I feel that honesty is still the best policy. I will not hesitate to share with these leaders what I think about them and give
Wow,
them
give it to
feedback
them.
on how. I mean, not just providing negative feedback, right? You want them to improve. So even put things into context and say, if I were you, I wouldn't have said things like that. I would have said it this other way.
Yeah,
Or have you
yeah.
considered what happened when this mistake was made? Yeah, putting more perspective into that. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
guarantee that
yeah.
I can turn around this leader's behavior, but I want to know that I've done my part. Yeah, because a lot
Yeah,
of time I represent my team as well when I want to handle leaders like that. Yeah.
for sure. And I mean, I'm really looking at the polls here, looking at, just the hardest skills and values. So something that resonated with people, I can see here, it's tied actually. Um, Being vulnerable with colleagues and team members, and so I think it's cut off here, but projecting confidence as a leader when shit hits the fan. Yeah, but tell me more a bit about being vulnerable with colleagues and team members. Have you ever had to have very hard vulnerable conversations with your team before?
Yeah, I feel that when if I'm my team's leader, I come in, supposedly I am supposed to lead them, right? But when I go to them and say that, hey, I don't really know this. Can you explain to me how this works and show me why you think it's like that? I feel that is an act of vulnerability on my end.
Mm,
Uh, yeah, I feel that it you need to lower yourself and really just admit that you do not know and get the help you need. Yeah, and
yeah, yeah.
and I think if your team realizes that they want, if they realize that you have the intent of being better to help to do better work and produce better outcome for organization, they're also more willing to help you. Yeah.
Mm,
But
yeah.
this point on vulnerability, right? Um, I there was this ex-colleague who left a very memorable impression on me. Right,
Yeah, tell me more.
he was a country GM for a foreign market which Pakto had just launched, and because we were new to the market, there were
Mm-hmm.
plenty of figuring out to do. Right, finding out what's the market product feed, what are the
Yeah.
effective marketing channels to try, who to hire, where should the office be located, how much should we pay for office rent, and then record
Man.
having conversations with him because he was the GM, right?
Yeah.
He came to me over a call. He was upfront and candid, trying to seek help with work issues. But the context is he came from a country with a very strong male-dominated corporate culture, and he had
I
worked 10
see.
years more than me. He had worked 10
Mm.
years more than me. So I could
Wow.
really
Okay.
imagine his discomfort and sense this vulnerability, right, from him having to report into me on the hierarchy line and admitting that he needed help and sought for advice. And you know what's so amazing was also because self-interest was never a driving factor for him. He often
Yeah.
credited his team for good work and when mistakes were made, he was also quick to take responsibility for them.
Mm.
It was never about who made the mistake from him. He'll never tell you who made the mistake. you know
Yeah.
and up till today, right, I mentioned him. I have so much respect for him because he demonstrated emotional maturity when he placed his consideration for his team above himself, right?
Yeah.
And I learned along with him. Even though he reported into me, I learned together with him. It was such a humbling experience to work with him. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe this kind of leads me on to my next question. You talked about how you had people older than you, also of the opposite sex reporting to you. Have you ever been, when you were CEO at Paktor, and even maybe, I don't know now, have you ever been discounted? Have you ever felt there were instances where you were discounted as a leader because of, whatever attributes you had?
No, not really, because I guess firstly, people who know me or who have worked with me, they know that I tend to do my best, and as I say, I never give up. I always keep trying and pushing for things, and also I try together with a very good team. Of course, I try to produce good work outcome as well. So just based on all of these outputs, seeing is believing. Yeah,
Yeah.
people don't really discount me so far. Yeah, I
Yeah, the
haven't
proof
felt that
the
yet.
proof is
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, yeah, like what you said, seeing is believing. Like, the proof is in the pudding lah. If you can see
Correct.
got results, means like you are clearly
Yeah,
effective as a person. So
yeah,
maybe let's talk a bit about, the startup journey, right? Because you were at Paktor, which is a very hyper masculine, product environment when people think of gaming. And then no, you are now at Storms, but before that, you were at Paktor, which, people see dating, the olden times you see matchmakers as females. So moving from a very hyper feminine environment or feminine product to, let's say, gaming, what was the decision there? What were the how do you rationalize it?
I guess this move was more of a personal decision. I wasn't looking at it from the perspective of hyper feminine to masculine kind of change in
Mm,
trait. So I think maybe the context is I want to provide this context, right? Why I left Paktor and why I joined Storms. Last May, around last May, there were three things that was happening. Singapore was going through a circuit breaker. I spent a lot of
mm,
time. I spent a lot more time at home, and I also delivered a pair of twin boys and got
congrats.
promoted to a mother of three. And Paktor,
Wow.
where I was working at for 6 years, got acquired by Collective Ventures, and they were operating in a very stable state. So the combination of these three events, right, got me to pause and really evaluate my options. My 6 years at Paktor had been very rewarding. As you mentioned just now, I got promoted from marketing to CEO to CEO, but I got curious about work beyond marketing, beyond matchmaking, right?
Mm,
So by elimination, I know that I wanted to take on a non-dating role and
mm,
but still stay within the mobile app realm where I have the working knowledge, right? So at
yeah.
Paktor, I had spent significant time working closely with our teams on A/B testing, the price elasticity test, in-app economy, and monetization features. So this part on the in-app monetization model really was interesting to me. How mobile games they had these robust monetization frameworks, which I really looked up to, because all
Mm,
of these app developers, right, they leverage the gamer psychology to get the players hooked through very well
yeah.
level progressions. It's something that dating will never have. Dating is pretty
Ah,
straightforward relative to gaming, right? And so that was the first thing. So the second thing is also the leadership at Storms really mattered to me as well. So our current Storm CEO, David, he's a friend. He started as a friend, right, whom I worked with when I was at Paktor and he was at Google Play Store. I personally know him to be ethical. He's also a kind of leader who is very open to feedback. And he also has extensive gaming experience himself. He was at Google Play Store
mm,
for 6 years. So I want to be genuine, and I appreciate leaders who are also open to feedback. So David so nicely fit into this category of leader I really want to work with.
yeah.
And I decided, with his network in mobile gaming, his experience in gaming, there's no better place to pick up gaming than from him, right? So that's how I ended up at Storms. And as for your point on this feminine and masculine thing, right? It's been 8 months since I joined Storms. I agree that there's a learning curve for me, while picking up mobile gaming. But I feel that um, the the what I'm seeing in terms of the gender ratio here, the bulk of the leadership team at Storms are mostly females today. Surprisingly,
Wow.
yeah, it's really made up of more females than males. And also, as I got to know more and more about gaming, because at Storms we actually publish hyper casual game. Hyper
Mm,
casual games are games that's very simple to play. In fact, they could be games that transcends three generations in my family. My 4-year-old daughter, myself, and my 60-year-old mother, three of us can be playing the same game. It's so easy to play.
yeah.
So games like that, it actually really appeals to the female audiences a lot. So ever since
Yeah.
I joined Storms, I realized that actually it's a myth. It's actually the other way around, we see a lot more female gamers playing hyper-casual games than males. Yeah,
Huh. Wow,
yeah,
that's a really interesting insight. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
because usually, when I was growing up, I would think, oh, the gamer boys who are constantly at their PlayStation kind of thing. But
yeah,
no, it's evolved.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
correct. Yeah,
That's really interesting as well. And I'm wondering as well, in our pre-interview we talked about 360 feedback mechanisms. And is this something that you do in startups? Because it's also, it's increased in popularity recently as well.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I totally applaud 360 feedback, but it's not easy to implement. So, the reason why I appreciate this feedback system is because of increased accountability at all levels. It actually helps to improve senior manager self-awareness when there's bottom-up feedback, right?
Yeah.
So this ties back to my earlier point on leaders who lack self-awareness. They need this tool to this system to give them real feedback from the ground. And lastly, which I strongly advocate for, I think I would encourage staff to provide authentic feedback bottom up, right? Because it's also a way
Mm,
of managing upwards, right?
mm,
The real feedback you give about your leaders, be it positive or negative ones, it helps them to advance their career. Yeah. So
mm,
yeah, but there are a lot of challenges with administering such a program in Asia. I tried at Paktor.
yeah.
So basically, staff tend to be less truthful and communicative when it involves negative feedback or criticism on their managers.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah.
paradoxical situation where, I want to help you by giving you real feedback that you're probably not such a good manager, but I also worry about the repercussions of being marked down during performance appraisal. Yeah, but and also that's the first point. And then second thing is
Yeah.
also you want to give feedback to your manager, right? Such feedback needs to be constructive with clear examples
Mm,
provided, so then your
yeah.
manager can work on it, right? In a written format, imagine you have a system where people write out what are their feedback and then it gets all submitted, right? In a written format, descriptions are typically very brief and lack context. If it's too
Mm,
big, right, and then there's no example to back it, then the manager also cannot work on improving because it's not clear on what is it about and how can they improve, right?
yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
and last but not least, if you're talking about managers or senior management in the company, the CEO or the head of HR in the organization, they have to be involved in this exercise because they
Yeah.
need to see what were the feedback being given, and they need to get involved, and they have to hold their managers accountable to change for the better.
Yeah.
Right? It is actually time required from the senior, the CEO and the CHRO to understand where are the gaps and invest time into conducting regular check-in with the senior executives to mentor them and to make sure that changes are observed. Right.
Yeah.
So having shared the above, there's so many challenges, but I did roll out this 360 feedback at Paktor because the benefits greatly outweigh the time and resources to facilitate this initiative. So back then we leveraged this tool where it's called Bamboo HR, where we
Mm,
actually ask for written assessment on lateral co-workers and subordinates every quarter. But for the bottom-up feedback, right, we actually conduct it through physical Ask Me Anything sessions. So we actually go down to each market officers, spend time with the entire department without their managers, and
mm,
that's one. And also when I'm down in those markets, I tend to have one-to-one sessions with my colleagues, wanting to hear like how it's worked for them,
yeah.
what's their
More
managers
informal
like.
setting.
Yeah, I think hearing from them, then on the spot, I can also clarify what do you mean when you say this, right? That gives me more context. Yeah.
Yeah. And like what you also said, also the idea of kind of implementing this in a very Asian context as well. Because nowadays, a lot of things like diversity, communication styles, 360 feedback, these are concepts that has roots in the West. So I'm also wondering how has that translated into the Asian context? And as we can see from the poll, most people are, agreeable for 360 feedback mechanism. But again, yes, back to you, Shin.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that the Western side of the world, they have introduced such discussions, such considerations on diversity, to Asia. But I feel that for an organization to be successful, regardless of where you are in the world, the leaders always need to fall back on their values, right?
Mm,
Yeah, as long as you have the right values, you do the right thing, then you can be a good leader and lead the organization to onto the right path, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
give
yeah.
feedback, or you want to set up policy, HR policies on promoting diversity, being more inclusive. I feel yes, these are good to have, but fundamentally it still falls back on the leadership of the company.
Yeah.
What kind of values do they have? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because
It
if
always goes
HR
back.
can implement this, it can be, for lack of a better word, it can be quite superficial, right? It's a policy, but do the leaders really believe in it and practice it? That's
Yeah,
another.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
because it could just be a show, like a, just for show, just to say that, oh, I'm so woke, I'm doing the right things, what everyone should be doing. Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's really that's really interesting. And with that, I think we can move on to our last section. We're already, finishing out the interview, which is it doesn't feel like this feels like a friendly chat. But even so, the idea of work-life balance, working from home, is the hottest topic right now. Everyone wants to talk about it. But there have been a few debates. Some debates are that you need resources. It is work from home is a privilege because you need those resources. Whereas on the flip side, work from home, people are saying that actually it should not be considered a privilege. It should be a given. Like people should already be having those things in place. Their bosses should provide those things already. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, this work from home thing, right? Funny enough, from Pak Tor days until I joined Storms, both organizations, they are they work from they our both bosses are very big on working from home. They want to practice flexibility at work. So
Yeah.
to me, I feel that with or without the pandemic, I work from home has always been a default, right? And even at Storms,
Mm.
since before I joined Storms, HR already told me that they have given up their office in Singtel office. By default, the default arrangement is we all work from home. We still have an
Mm.
office here in Just Co, just for days where we want to have team meetings. Yeah,
Yeah.
but people hardly come in. We all work from home, and it's been a perfect arrangement. But possibly
Mm.
also due to the nature of our work, because we're in gaming, a lot of our work can be just conducted, through we do our work on emails. We can no problem with having virtual calls. There's really no need for us to meet up in person. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And the flip side is that people are just like, it's not a privilege because you actually work more when you're working from home because the lines get blurred and all that, right? And
yeah. That's
as a
why.
working mom, yeah, it's
Yeah, I
hard.
need to be disciplined with on when you stop work every day. Else it can be never stop. It doesn't stop, right? You can work till midnight and then you don't realize, yeah, how time just slips
Yeah.
by. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And okay, oh yeah, guys, please feel free to put in more questions into the Q&A, which we'll answer in a bit. But I also want to know as well, you just delivered twins, 3 kids, and you're balancing a very, a role that's quite important, quite up there. So how have you been able to find routines and rituals that you have to stick by? Because you only have 24 hours in a day, right?
Yeah. So well, I hold myself accountable on several fronts. Being self-disciplined, right? Just now I mentioned I need to know when to switch off from work to spend time with my family. And also I hold myself accountable to be healthy, both
Mm,
physically and on my own mental well-being. Because if I'm not in good health, I cannot take good care of my children and my aging parents. And specific on the mental health portion of a mother, I personally feel, and I urge other mothers to walk out of toxic comparisons, to stop comparing yourself against others' ability to have it all. For instance, sometimes I see my friends who are also mothers, right? They have been hand sewing matchy outfits for themselves and for their children, preparing the
mm,
Insta-worthy bento lunch boxes, orchestrating very nice birthday parties. Well, I kudos to them, but the truth is, I know that realistically speaking, I can't do that given my work commitments, right? And the truth is, we only see what these mothers are choosing to share on their social media. We don't see their everyday ups
mm,
and downs. So try not to compare.
yeah.
I think that's something that I always remind myself, and also find that having the right mindset as a working mother and figuring out what works for me and my family is more effective, that is the most effective resource. And I tell you why. It's not about how many headcounts I have in my family, how many helpers can I hire to come and babysit my children. It's not about that. It's actually going to the root of the issue. How can I get my children to be self-sufficient and independent? The earlier they know
Mm,
how to bathe themselves, how to go to toilet independently, how to manage hot water to prepare their own milk, these are all burden taken off a headcount in the family. We don't need to
No.
helicopter. We don't need to helicopter them. We don't need to supervise them, right? They can do by themselves. Then suddenly it becomes, we have a good situation where we don't need a lot of adults in the household when they are self-sufficient and they're independent. But of course, the journey of training them out to be independent is not easy. Yeah,
No,
because
I
there
mean
are
for
some risks
sure.
and
Yeah.
dangers involved. Getting them to operate scissors and knives, managing
And
hot waters.
cooking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
No,
I
I
think
mean
that,
it's
yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, correct. So I maybe what I've just shared may be a controversial approach for some parents, but I'm actually very thankful, to my family members, from my husband, my mother, my parent-in-law. They are all quite aligned with my approach. So I think I'm good so far. Yeah, this has helped me a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah, this approach has helped me a lot as a working mom.
And I really see the parallels also in a company as well. You also don't want to keep kind of like helicoptering any junior staff, right? You want to ensure that they learn, that they end up becoming self-sufficient to a certain extent, that they know what skills to pick up, and you don't have to helicopter them or manage them by spreadsheets even. So
Yeah, yeah,
wow, yeah.
that's right. And that also that reminds me of one of the advice I've heard about hiring people, right? You want to hire good people, and it's defined as people who are more competent than yourself and have very high moral values. Because people like that who are competent and having high moral values, they tend to be people who are very accountable at work. Once you have
Mm,
accountable people in your team, you can trust them to run the show. You don't need to micromanage and put time into managing them, asking them why is this not done. All this can be taken out
for
of the
sure.
workload from the workload of a leader. Yeah.
And with that, we can move into our Q&A section. Wow,
Uh,
I feel like we didn't have enough time. I have so many more questions to ask, but we have to give the people what they want here. And there's a question that's really interesting here. It says earlier on you mentioned that you joined Storms because you knew how David was as a person, and he was also aligned with your values as someone who was open to feedback. Do you have some tips on how to check whether your potential superior or even upper management has the same kind of values as you? Because oftentimes we won't really know what our superiors are like until we enter the company we work at.
yeah. So, same as what we practice at a matchmaking agency, right? You need to have a relationship with that person. This person in your context now is my boss, right? So the
Mm,
more time I spend talking to him, or as much as possible, I meet up with him in person, the more interactions we have. And the minute I'm open to him, and he's also someone who's open, right? Then that's when we can have good, honest sharing, and we can open up to each other.
yeah. But do you feel that oftentimes, because nowadays there's this thing called reverse interview where you reverse interview your boss, at an
Oh,
interview.
I think I misunderstood the question. You're saying that before I join the company, how do I tell whether
Yeah,
my
yeah,
potential, my next leader has such values, right? I think
exactly.
yeah, I mean you can, I mean, of course, when I joined Storms, I already knew David, right? So I had the upper hand since he was a friend. But I can imagine myself, if I'm the one being interviewed, I'll actually put situational questions. I'll post situational questions to my potential manager to ask them, right? In such
Wow.
a case, what would you do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
What's
yeah.
your stance
And
on
that's
this? I think from such instances, you can tell a lot.
Yeah, and I also feel that the fact that they would, let's say, be open to having these questions asked to them already shows a bit about their character.
Yeah. Yeah. And for such situational questions, there's no way you can prepare for it as well. Yeah. So
Yes,
that's the
that's
best
also
time
true.
to test and assess. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we hope that your question has been answered. Something else. How do you interview for good talent? Do you have a criteria? Um, is it a vibe? Is it a feel?
No, so it depends on which job, what is the job function we're talking about. So I
Mm,
think, of course, we filter out based on their CVs first, right? And then
yeah.
we typically put them, if possible, we put them through an assessment. So, for
Mm,
example, our PR person, all the candidates had to write a mock press release in an hour's time. Right? That's
I
one
see.
that's a very objective assessment point. And then for our graphic designers, they were also given a brief. They have to come out and produce a design for something, for emailer or something within a certain time period. And there's no way they can prepare for it. They have to do it on the spot. Then based on the
Yeah.
output, we assess fairly, right, which work actually are the good ones. And then based on the output of their work, then we move on to scheduling them for interview. And at Storms, I really like how our interviews work. Perhaps due to my current CEO, right, he was an ex-Googler. So we actually typically we have the direct hiring manager interviewing this person first. And after the manager pass, then there will be lateral functions interviewing this person as well. Because we're actually interviewing for a company and cultural fit. Yeah, and then the last round
Interesting.
is finally with my CEO. So no matter how senior or junior this role is, my CEO always talk to this junior person. Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
really, it's really, new. I love that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think I myself I went through 5 rounds of interview before I joined Storms. Yeah.
Huh? And David was your friend?
Yeah. That shows how objective he is, no?
Yeah, that is true. And
Yeah.
yeah, with our next question, we have, hitting product and marketing at Paktor. Ideas must have been key for product which, exceeds business objectives or marketing campaigns which can grow the business. And you also mentioned that you want to listen to the team. So how do you stop group thinking? I think I don't know. I think so. My interpretation is that
Mm.
ideas are very important for a successful product or campaign. Um, and when when you want to listen to everyone's ideas, how do you also stop them from, let's say, only focusing on something for the campaign, only focusing on this idea? Yeah, especially when you're doing the A/B testing kind of stuff.
I feel okay. I'm sorry. I feel that's a very broad question. There's a few things I would clarify. So I mean, if you talk about group think, right? I feel that to avoid that, you need to somehow have discussions at different levels. The first level is at department level. If you're talking about marketing, then they have their own ideas, product have their own ideas. And then the next level is where you put everybody together in a room to just share with each other what their perspective is from their department, right? Because marketing will have their agenda and they want to achieve certain things, product have their, then you need to have decision makers. So, the head of product or the senior person in the room, whoever is making the decision, you need to be fair and equally evaluate everyone's perspective. And fundamentally someone have to make the decision, right? So when you make decision, you have to always lie back on whatever data points you have. I think that's the most objective way to make an informed decision, right?
Yeah.
Or even better, if time and resources permit, we picked out like the best ideas, and we test them. We test them one by one, right? For this group thing, I was a psychology major. I did remember studying this group thing. I feel that I feel that for this group thing, you can't really. It's not possible to fully eliminate it. It's
Yeah.
more from the leader's perspective. How do you manage such behavior? And if you sense that there's group thing happening, you need to encourage other perspectives or new ideas from other people. Yeah, you need to challenge the um, um, majority's idea, whatever this group thing
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. And another question is, are leaders obliged to explain the entire situation to team members?
I would say yes, but there are unique situations where we can't due to legal or confidentiality issues, right? Yeah. I would
Yeah.
say as much as possible, we should be transparent and explain whatever we know. But sometimes we can't.
Okay,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. And next question is, what advice? I mean, this kind of merge with my question as well. What's the best advice you've been given? It can be from, you know, a mentor. It can be from a parent, or even in your family. What is the best advice you've been given that has really helped you today?
Mm, okay, so it's different for me for both work and family. So at work, right, just like I mentioned, the best advice is to hire people better than yourself. Yeah, you won't regret doing that. Because if you hire
Okay.
people whom are not as knowledgeable or as you, who are not better than you, um, the end outcome is that the organization will only be stuck at your level of competency, and it cannot be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about family?
Family, right? It's a running joke. So everybody tells me don't be such a workaholic. So I was a known workaholic during my closet days before I joined Paktor, and when I joined Paktor, I was totally workaholic. It's insane, but I've since changed for the better. Yeah, I remember where I go to parks, I with my children, I brought along my laptop. My children will be playing at the playground. I'll be crunching spreadsheets. I was a bridesmaid for my best friend's wedding dinner, reception dinner. I brought along my laptop as well in my super nice dress. I was hiding in the toilet, sitting on the toilet bowl, trying to reply some emails on a Saturday night. Yeah. Or I was on honeymoon and I spent half my day from morning till late evening in the hotel room trying to reply emails due to time zone difference. And my super patient and understanding husband would be there waiting for me. That was the extent of what a workaholic I was. It was not good for health. And so my family, my friends always tell me, hey, Shin, you got to stop this. And and when my health was not in such a good state, it suddenly, everything makes sense to me. I really need to stop this. And even me, myself as a role model, I realized, right, what kind of role model am I as a leader to my subordinates? Am I, if I'm sending out emails on a Saturday and Friday night, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to ruin their personal life as well? Right? And also maternity leave at Paktor. I think in Singapore we all have 3 months maternity leave from the government, right? I only took
Mm.
like half of it, and then immediately I went back to work already. And
Wow.
I wasn't conscious about this until I had a colleague who fell pregnant and then came to ask me, Shin, is it okay if I take all 3 months of my maternity leave? Then it was like a slap in my face to myself. Like, what have I done? I'm
Wow.
showing my subordinates that, I took half of my maternity leave. So should they follow the same? Yeah. So these are some of the personal, some of the advice that people have given me, and I've taken it. Yeah.
Wow, that's that's really, that's an interesting viewpoint because now, at least people think in the startup, it's all about hustle, 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 hustle. But
Yeah.
how do you also draw the line between rest, physical rest as well?
Yeah.
Um,
Correct. Yeah.
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 So awesome. And I think maybe we have time for one last question. But at any point in your life, career, whatever, has there ever been a moment where you've doubted the decisions you've made? And how have you convinced yourself in those moments that it was the right decision?
Mm. I think it has happened. It has happened before. So one instance was when I had this was at Paktor. I had a super competent senior leader. There were a lot of people reporting to him. He produced stellar work, but unfortunately there were feedback from the ground on misconduct on his end, right?
Mm,
And it was a very hard
mm,
decision on me to make because back then, as the CEO, I realized that if I remove this person, there'll be immediate impacts to my revenue, and the team
mm,
for the short time being, there'll be no leader to lead them. The great momentum at work they had would be disrupted. How am I going to explain for a dip in revenues and user metrics? Right? It was a constant
yeah.
battle within myself, and I discussed at great length with my HR colleagues, with my other senior management members. But I guess end of the day, we fall back on our core values, do what is right for the organization. We bit the bullet and we did let the person go. It was very
Mm.
painful process. The next 2 months was very painful, but we had to do it. Yeah. So this is one instance which came to mind.
Wow. Okay. That sounds really intense.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
to be able to make that, yeah.
yeah, in a startup, we have very limited resources. We are fighting to survive, right? And we have a lot to prove to our investors. There will be reports produced to explain to them whether we met our targets or not. And then
Mm,
some of the big decisions that you make, be it removal of a senior management member or making a super big spend, but is a guess. You do not know whether this big spend can give you the necessary returns to help you meet your goals. So these are times where information is not really readily available. There's a lot of ambiguity, but we as leaders, we still have to figure it out and make the best decision for the company and for ourselves.
Yeah, like what you said just now, like there's no playbook to, let's say, a failed IPO. There's no playbook to, certain kinds of things. It's trusting your gut as well sometimes.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, well, I mean, with that, I think we can, conclude today's session. But thank you, Shin, for coming on board to, share your heart, share your thoughts, wisdom, learnings. I really do think that, we've benefited so much from our conversation. I really feel like it was just talking, it's just very casual chat lah.
Yeah, it feels the same to me as well.
Yay. So yeah, I think when you leave the chat, a survey will pop up for you to fill in. But before that, maybe I can share a bit about the next event happening. Yeah, so our next event happening in 2 weeks is going to be involving Tom Sao, co-founder and managing partner at Gobi Partners. So, nowadays, I think both gender roles and also just leadership in different spaces have been blurred. And we're going to talk about the issue of, can you lead both in the workplace and out of it? So it's going to be a very interesting talk. And yeah, when you close this chat or this Zoom, that survey will pop out for you to view it. But yeah, other than that, next slide. Thank you, Shin, for coming on board today. Yeah, like I feel that I personally myself have learned so much from this conversation, and the importance of fairness and tenacity. I think when you just want to give up and things are like really shit and hard. Thank you. Thanks, Shin, for that.
Everyone has a good story to share. Thank you so much for having me here today to share mine. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so if you guys have any more questions or even questions that you want to direct towards Shin, please email us at community@KrAsia. Then we can pass on the question to Shin. Then she can just answer it, because we had quite a few questions here today, and unfortunately we could not answer everything. But yeah, have a good rest of the week, everyone. Yeah, thank you guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.